Welcome to the Table Rush Talk Show. This is Vince Green, interview number 2. Vince Green is all about action. If you're trying to sell your product or service, if you're trying to market your product or service, you've got to take action to get the data to see what works. Test, test, test. There's no way around it. At some point, you've just got to put yourself out there. Vince addresses all that in a beautiful, in only the way that Vince can. My favorite little thing he says, you've got to grab your lemonade stand, put it in the wagon, and you got to go to the football game. Then you can have a conversation about the demographics and the psychographics. Up until then, you're just spinning your wheels. Listen to this interview and watch. And, of course, subscribe down in the bottom corner with Vince Green. Enjoy. Super fun, super inspiring. It's going to make you want to get out there and start taking action. Welcome, everybody, to the Table Rush Masterclass, where we get back to this marketing and sales basics to help entrepreneurs like you grow to $1 million and beyond. And who do we have on today but the amazing, incredible Coach Vince Green, who just I don't know, how do we say how amazing Vince is? Tell me.
You'd have to ask my mom. That's all I have to say. If you ask my mom, you're going to get a very clear answer. Okay, that's all. That's what I know for sure. If you ask me, I think we all have amazing moments, my friends. So, there's a reason that we're on this earth. Maybe one day we'll all figure it out. Some people have, some people are like right there and on it. That's really good. They've got their North Star and away they go. I think I thank you for the accolades, but I'm not sure. A lot of what I work on today, it's not like where I used to be, but a lot of what I work on these past few years is channeling through other people, right? Helping other people to get their stuff off the ground, or get it from hovering at a 6-foot level to a 60-foot level, and then how you get that thing to get going, right? There's that whole kind of conversation that people have about how much fuel it takes to get the rocket ship just off the ground versus how much it actually takes to get it once it's past that point of no return. I really don't know. I'm going to call it the point of no return for today. But what is it? What does it take to get past that? It's like, I don't know. It's a fraction, maybe a big fraction, but it's a fraction of what it took to get off the ground. And so, when we have these concepts for business, when we want to move into a new space, there's a lot of things that we have to get set up, and we have to figure out how to get them running at an 80-20 level, right? How do we get the 20 of it running so that we can get going? And so, again, how do you be amazing? Each of us got to ask our mom, Day to day, though, day to day, we should all be able to measure it, and that's a consistent kind of thing for me. So, there is the expression, "the path is math," but I mean that's really only one part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do we get to that? How do we get to that next level? And we're all, it's very common for us to be kind of, diving into something and kind of go, why is this happening? Well, in a lot of cases, we're getting exactly what our work is giving us, right? Right. So I mean, we can, maybe we can see past it, but when you take those actions. Now, in marketing, that can be a little bit different. In sales, that can be a little different. But the actual work of doing it. Because there's a difference between understanding the principles behind putting out a marketing campaign, because that's really what Table Rush is all about, right? How do we create this high desire coming towards us, right? If we're at the front of the room and our team's at the back, like how do we create that? Or how do we create that energy that takes people to the order page and they go, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Thank you very much, Misha, right?
Yes.
And so that process we can do. You know, we can't create demand. And I think if there's something that you said, Vince, like, what do you want to talk about? And like, there's this whole thing about demand and desire and the avatar. And maybe we can go there because it's actually one thing you have to understand about your audience is what is their demand for this and how does that demand become desire? And there's no secret. If there was, we would just all go and we would flick the little light switch and everything would be good. But it's not, right? It's, you know, and it really, we can get into it. But anyway, I want to thank you for giving me the chance to mention my bum and a chance for being on the podcast, bud. But you know, it's this is an interesting world that we play in because, you know, it's an interesting world with the changes that are going on. So anyway, so does that work for you?
It does. It does work for me. Thank you very much. Yes. You touched on maybe we would move towards the avatar. Yes. Is that what I heard you say?
Avatar. Yeah. And less about how do you define the avatar, but I'm hoping that we should all know it, right?
Mm.
You know, I was at an event not too long ago where the opportunity to listen to some amazing speakers and it wasn't that long ago. You know, things are starting to come back now. And the interesting thing is, like, when you go and you spend time and you have real focus on what's going on right in front of you, you know, you hear certain things, right? And I heard this gentleman say, you know, there's when it comes to trust and or authority and or, you know, the know, like, and trust, but, you know, I like to focus on trust and authority.
Yeah.
You know, and he talked about, like, yeah, and these are, I assume because I've heard them before, common, you know, marketing principles, right? But who do we listen to? Right? We listen to people in authority, right? We listen to our friend at the coffee shop, right? And then we listen to people that have done what we're trying to do. And he called them problem relevant.
Okay.
And so if you look at those three things, and Cialdini in his book, Dr. Robert Cialdini talks about the authority space in his book Influence, which is definitely a read if you're starting out and if you're into reading books or getting the synopsis of it. He talks about 6 main principles. I'm not going to go into them today.
Okay.
Way out of focus for us, but you know, that authority figure is really important, right? So if you're sick and you are so inclined to go to the doctor, or you're so inclined to go to your, you know, your herbalist or wherever it is, like, you're looking for that person who, whether they do or might have their own version, wear a white coat, right? And so, right, so when you understand, that's the kind of things that we want to understand about an avatar, right? Who do they go to, right? And are we the person in the white coat, or are we the friend at the coffee shop? This one's really difficult, like, because in a lot of cases, this is where you're trying to, you know, speak to your audience like you're their friend, and that's really difficult, right? Because, you know, especially in early days, they're looking for authority, or, right, I think the last one there, somebody who's actually gone through this, someone who's gone through all of the things that you've gone through, and they're saying, like, well, how'd you do it? And you're like, well, I got a story. You want to hear it? Yeah. Right? And so, and when they hear that, right, that's where the demand for the services that you have turn into desire, because they have a demand to solve the problem, whatever that is. And again, some people view these things as you know, as opportunities as well.
Okay. So
I think it's, and again, we're just talking high level today. So I think it's really fair to say that there are problems, there is pain, and a lot of our audience is moving away from pain, but there's a whole segment of this world that is moving towards pleasure. It's just, a lot of us are wired differently. And you can really say that same person who is mostly wired to move away from pain or mostly moving towards pleasure also has some of the other.
Yeah.
right? So let's not try to say that everybody is just kind of one way or the other. There might be some people that are just, completely that way.
Yeah.
Um, but we transcend into, once we have it down and where it's rinse and repeat, we transcend in this other kind of thing where we're just actually, implementation and doing it over and over and improving and getting better. So anyway, coming back to the avatar, I just wanted to kind of plant that in because that's just really like one way when you look at these people of identifying their pain or their problem and understanding that there's a few different types of people that they might listen to, and they're definitely listening to a friend over coffee, right? Whether that friend's on social and that's how they know them, or whether it's a true friend or somebody who is, that they seek their opinion of. So it's important to remember that. It's important to remember which authority figure that they're looking for. Is it the one with the degree in the white coat, or is it the
Yeah.
one that's gone through this? So anyway, I just thought we would kind of start there and kind of go
I,
from there.
I love that. Um, I want to, I love that. So we've got the authority figure, or which authority figure are there? To recap what you said, we've got the friend at the bar, and maybe they're representative of someone we pay attention to on Facebook as a friend, or Instagram, or we've got the person that's like, hey, I just went through this, come with me, I can show you, or the been through it person, or the white coat guy who's got the PhD or the doctorate. Is that recapping what you
Yeah,
said?
you got those three. The authority, the friend over coffee, as I usually say it, because again, the kind of conversations you might have at a bar could be different over coffee. So
Yeah.
it was
Okay.
like authority, a friend over coffee, a sober conversation.
Silver
Nothing wrong.
cover. I love it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
nothing wrong with the other, but I just kind of go in there, and
Right.
then someone who's gone through it, right? Someone who can say, "I've been there. I." I understand. I have felt it, and it's really kind of one of those things where, and everybody approaches it differently. For me, a lot of it is like, well, it's no wonder you're going through this
Yeah.
if you're doing this, and this, right? If you're searching for this, and this problem, right? As marketers, and then as someone who wants that problem solved, if you're looking at the obvious, if you're looking at the immediately available and it's not working, right? We start to dig, right? We either pay attention to those people that tap us on the shoulder, right, or we search and we seek,
Mm.
right? And then the problem becomes, well, I got like here's my desk and I got like 15 different pieces. Like which ones am I supposed to connect or which ones am I supposed to play?
Yeah.
Right? And which way am I supposed to do it? And what does that come back to? It comes back to that individuals and the marketer and the service provider, their beliefs and values,
Mm.
because that's really where we're going with all this, right?
Okay. Yep.
You're going into what are their current beliefs? What are they willing to? What do they believe in? Do they believe in natural sources? If it's health, if it's wealth, do they believe in over time? Do they believe that no, it's okay? Like some people do kind of make it uh, fast, right? So again, beliefs and then values, and I would suggest to you that for a lot of this it's important to bring our values out. So that's
Mm.
why that's why people have, just in general, well, let's just say that's why they write, that's why they speak, right? That's why they coach and consult, right? All of those things. The medium isn't so important, but that's how you get it out there,
Mm.
right?
I wanted to, if I heard you correctly as well, we've got these three authority figures, and it's not that one is better or worse than the other. It's paying attention to who is your audience want to hear from, or maybe I'm not saying that right, but you're like, hey, who is my audience listening? Who's my avatar listening to? Are they listening to that doctor? Are they listening to the authority figure,
Or a friend.
the friend? Yeah, right. Is that not to place value on those, but who maybe you could? Does that? I don't know if I'm asking a question or.
Well, if you're confirming, take it to the next level. Like, so if you have whatever business you have, right? You could
Yeah.
be what was years ago, traditionally known as brick and mortar, or you could be, fully online, say from, late 90s, early 2000s. It really doesn't matter. Today in this world, there is no more, just in this guy's opinion, there is no more online and offline. Like everybody is kind of both.
Yeah.
We can have strategies that are truly online that we seek, right? It goes back to measuring the metrics. And, if you're putting together a certain strategy, whether you would consider it online or offline or just business, right? It has to be measured. So anyway, getting back to kind of where you're going with that, if you look at depends to the degree of the problem, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you're in a place where you want to get your grass cut because you don't want to cut it anymore, if you're in a place where you want to get your snow removed because you don't want to do that anymore, how do you solve that, right?
Yeah.
Used to be in days gone by, that folks used to use yellow pages. And now what we do is, we Google things, or we could be just it could be a thought, right? It could be like, it's kind of a level 1 or level 2 problem. And suddenly you see, hey, it's Black Friday because we're doing this on Black Friday.
Yeah.
And, Joey and Janet's snow removal has a kind of a service, first 3 months at 50% off. And you're like, what? Okay. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's click that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the seed is already there. Getting back to it, just like, as you said, hey, Vince, I think, a lot of my audiences might be just starting out, or may have had some starts and this kind of, and are coming back and saying, now it's a restart or whatever it is. And so
Yeah.
if you've experienced this, right, it depends the degree to what the problem is in someone's mind, right?
Yeah.
So how focused are they on it?
Yeah.
If there's some reason, like if somebody wants to go away for the summer and they're looking to someone to have their grass cut and they're leaving in a month and a half, probably that degree is not that great. But if they haven't done anything about it and suddenly they're leaving on Sunday and today it's Friday, they're probably going to want to get that done, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you have to kind of measure the tenor of this, and that's why all businesses need to be ready, right? You need to move at all kind of speeds, because you have people that are just kind of passing by,
Yep.
right? Like if we were out there, they're kind of passing by and like, oh yeah, that would be kind of cool. Oh, these guys do snow, these guys do grass. That's kind of cool. I've been thinking about that, right? Versus, no, it's Friday, we leave Sunday. Like this needs to be done.
Yes.
And you could say that's just urgency, but at the same time, it's that level of focus that these people have.
Yeah.
And so, all businesses need to be prepared to meet that level of sophistication, that level of awareness, that level of focus comes through many words. And as you kind of get into that, these are kind of the old school principles and they're principles for a reason, because it's not going to change.
Thank you for that. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so again, because this is how we measure where we put our resources. Because that's right. Like that's kind of this part of at your business, right? You have resources that you're going to put into place. Time is for people starting out, that's really the biggest thing. It's like, okay, where am I going to put my time? What's most important? Do I need to figure out my avatar, or do I need to get the word out, or do I just need to get some funds in the bank? Do I need to make some sales?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, somebody would say, well, all of that's important. I get it. But the challenge is how do you manage through that process? And so hopefully, people aren't sitting there saying well, I just need, if you need revenue today and you're coming from a standing start, sorry about that. If you're coming from a standing start, there's a lot of things that you have to get in place. But if you're already up and running and there's opportunities like Black Friday, or, if there's some seasonal aspect of this, you should be preparing well in advance. But the point is that, the resources that you have initially for most people starting out is time, energy, and money, right? And there could
Yeah.
be other things too. Could be relationships, could be network. There's a lot of things. And so how you line those up, and again, you got to watch like what replenishes and what doesn't,
Mm.
right? Networking and relationships, they replenish. Money replenishes like it's supposed to. It's
Yes.
supposed to replenish, right? So you got to look like time and energy don't.
Mm.
So those have to be applied differently. They might not be, you could value them more, or you could value them less, but they have to be applied. And then what do you get out of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting and again, I know you wanted to kind of talk about like how do folks look at an avatar? How do they identify who those people are? I think it goes beyond the demographics. So, where do they live?
Can I ask you a question before we get
Yeah,
into that?
yeah,
And it's this idea, and we can just touch on it quickly, moving away from pain or moving towards pleasure. And I'm wondering if you could give some specificity to that, or some examples, or frame each of those to just give us a little color around that.
sure. Demonstration. Demonstration. No, look, the context is and demonstration are really powerful things. So yeah, absolutely. Um, I just I think the most important thing, just before I jump into this,
Yeah.
is that there are people. It's first important to understand that in your marketplace, there are probably markets where it's all moving away from pain. There
Okay.
are probably markets where it's always, towards pleasure. And you could say, well, deep down psychologically, that might be, there might be some barriers that we're crossing at the same time. But the fact is that, you kind of have to pick your plan. Okay, if you're dealing with people that are moving away from pleasure, or people that are, sorry, moving away from pain or moving towards pleasure, and there's pretty much a distinction. Some of this has to do with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So if you don't know what that is, I encourage you to go and Maslow, Maslow, hierarchy of needs. And basically at the base of that pyramid is food, shelter, and clothing.
Yep.
And then as you move to the very top of it is how we play our part in the world. And so, as you kind of move through that, the next level up really is whether or not you're going to be moving. That's kind of moving away from the pain. Like you want to make sure you have food, shelter, and clothing,
Yeah.
right? Like if that's a battle for you today, or that's a customer, that's a battle for your customers, you need to know specifically where they are in that hierarchy. You need to know where they are. Like, are they working for a living and they're trying to get out of it? But if they are, then where are they headed? Do they want to get into management? Do they just want to get a higher paying job? Do they want to change careers and move up into higher levels of value, where like communication, like salespeople, like singers, actors, that can
Mm.
get highly paid? Or do they come into some money and they want to use their mind and put this money together, right? And I'm just really pulling together something that Myron Golden taught us about the four levels of value. Like, where are they headed? What are their goals? And why is that important? Because whether they're moving away from pain, meaning they're kind of, things haven't been well, and let's just say it's a shelter thing. They're not happy. They don't feel safe, right?
Yeah.
Safety is another component of Maslow's thing. So maybe they just don't feel safe about the neighborhood that they're living in, and they would like to own versus rent, right? And these are the kind of things that are all. If that's what's on their mind, saying, hey, lose 10 pounds in 10 days isn't a priority at this point, right? It
Yeah.
might make sense, like it might, but it's not the priority, right? So it's about getting that. So moving away from pain, moving into pleasure. Then there's others that are moving into pleasure, right? They're like, okay, so the house is paid. We got out of that neighborhood. We've been here for 10 years. Everything's going good. Now, what do we need to do? Now would be like, let's just say it's second property. Let's go back to our grass cutting and snow clearing thing. Like now
Yes.
they've bought, now they're looking for the second home, the cottage, the place on the river, the place on the water, right? Very different,
Yeah.
right? So if you're a real estate agent, if that's your business, then having that conversation about someone who's moving towards this versus someone who's moving, like when you decide what's my business going to be, who's my avatar, who am I serving? Can't serve everyone. Just can't today.
Can't.
Because everyone is 7 point something billion people in the world. and then you narrow it down, right? And then you really, you start to narrow it down. And that's where that whole kind of demographics and psychographics is.
Okay. Yes.
Is interesting, but beliefs, behavior and values really play into this, right? So I don't know if we specifically answered that question, but Maslow's hierarchy, but beliefs, values, like what are they like? Why are they doing this?
Yeah. Right. Like it could be like they're fresh out of a divorce. And so they're trying to deal with that psychic upheaval, right? That get out of the pain, right? Like let's move away, get past that, for example, might be a very specific idea of moving away from pain, having been through a divorce. Or
sure. So I haven't.
Yes.
But, I got to tell you, like, I've had friends and family and that kind of thing. Like, just going to say that we could probably tell some stories about how that's moving towards pleasure at the same time. That some of that was moving away from the pain. Maybe the pain was caused by they didn't want anything to do with this, right? That they were not the protagonist.
Okay.
In that scenario. So you have to, you again, going back and you're deep diving into the story. And I know if somebody's listening to this, they're like, well, how do I sell something? Could somebody get to the point where I'm actually selling something here? Right? Because this is all really good in theory, right? And it is,
yes.
But here's the thing. So what are we doing when we're talking about these kind of things? Pain to pleasure, authority, why are we doing this? Because we're trying to set when we're starting out or we're restarting. And by the way, I would rather restart than start, but you got to start before you can restart. And the reason that you're going to restart is you're getting feedback from the market. The market is saying, we love what you're doing, Vince. And you're like, yeah, but I hate doing it. Right? Or you're like, I love doing this. How come nobody's picking up on this? Right? So you've got that kind of disconnect between you and them. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's all about kind of, coming back around, like pulling your offer back and then going back in with a new offer. And I'm not talking about franchises in no way. So, like these turnkey operations, that's just following someone else's absolute framework. And if it works in that marketplace, great. There's no other, there's no other circumstances.
Yeah.
But, when you are out there and you're like, we need customers, we need to retain those customers. So once we've acquired the customers, we're looking for like, how can we retain them? But more importantly, like how can we send them through these, how can we sell them more of what we already have?
Yeah.
Right. And a number of ways to do that. You can sell it to them more often, right? You can sell them, bless you.
Thank you. There's something in the air. I don't know. Anyway, go on.
There you go. Yeah, no worries. Right. And so, or you can sell them, more over a longer period of time. So, just again, when it comes back to like why we keep going around this, because if you are starting out, if you're just starting out, you really have to be tuned into the feedback. Yeah. Right. And so there is no feedback, and this is I think probably where we can I want where we should get to, which is that there is no feedback if you're not taking action. So all of these things sound really cool. I mean, Misha's probably got 5 books that people should read. I got probably 5 books. Like, there's no shortage of it. But if you spend all your time reading books, watching YouTube videos, whatever it is, and not applying this, right? It's really difficult without any feedback, because that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to get your lemonade stand to the road. Kids don't care, right? They just grab a table and all the fixings and they write, lemonade, $55 because it comes with a fancy straw, whatever it is, or it's like $5, or it's like 5 cents, whatever it's going
Whatever.
to be, right?
Yes.
Right. So, it's all of this is to say that you have to choose, you have to select, and so you go in just as if you're a golfer, you're a tennis player. You have to choose the tools that you're going to come into the game with,
Yeah.
and you get to play, and then you're going to get feedback instantly, right? First time out, not so great. Why is that? Okay. If you can get some feedback, great. Or back to the YouTube video. Okay, what am I doing? Like, how did this? Like, what was going on here? Right? Because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
it truly is about practice and
Yep.
getting in it. And then it's sometimes what happens is that it just like you come to this complete point of failure, and it's like, okay, so now you're into restart. Or what happens is like, wait a second. If I do this, this, and this, I can rinse and repeat this pretty much every day, right? And it's like, because people want what you do, and that's where we want to end up.
Yeah.
Right. And part of that goal is to either become the highest, the highest grossing, the highest paid service, on the block. And it's because you've redefined whatever that service is. You've redefined grass cutting. You've redefined the, snow clearing, or you've combined the two and you've done something there. Right. Or you become the commodity, because there's no value in the middle. The middle is just lots of people going broke.
I love that. Thank you for that. That's so good.
And I know that there's a lot of people that are going to say, "Hey, we've been in business for 30 years. My parents bought this business," and it's like, and distinctly they're in the middle. And but there's something about those businesses, right? Like, you're a leader in price, or you're a leader in status or value, right?
Yeah.
There's something like you have to be. You are probably a leader in something.
Right.
And if you've been around long enough, you could just be a leader in the community. And that's kind of why you're always a leader in something. And whether that something is what you've chosen or not that's what the market gives you feedback on. And so the best way to figure out how to sell something is to go sell it. Like,
Love it.
that is 100%. Like, we can do podcasts, and we can we can read books, we can do all sorts of things, but the way you sell something is to go sell something
And start getting feedback. Okay. Yeah.
And it's 2021, so we're recording this on Black Friday in 2021. And so, there is a lot of opportunity. Like, if you're interested in something, how do I become a leader in the snow clearing space? Or how do I become a leader, as a chiropractor and as a realtor? How do I become a leader? And you start to look at these things. And the interesting thing is that with all the platforms and all the opportunities that we have, where people are posting and all of this is searchable, you have an opportunity to get a lot of feedback, right? To get plans, strategies, tactics. Right? Whether it's from free sources, blogs, podcasts, YouTube channels, whether it's literally low paid. You and I know a lot of people who are doing challenges lately and are able to like leverage those things, and they're able to get results, whether those challenges are free or low paid by most standards, low paid, or whether that just leads people into higher programs. There's ways to grab these frameworks and to see what people are doing and get out there and work through the process. And that is what, that's what all of this really comes down to, is like, if you make assumptions and you have to go run those tests, otherwise you're still a student. And students are interesting. Like, we on any given day, we're the student, but we're also someone who's already graduated, and we're out there moving.
Yeah.
Right. Because this just moves so fast. But anyway, I just, that's kind of, if there was a theme of what I wanted to talk about today, if you look at all the people as a marketer, we're paying attention to what other marketers are doing. And there's no shortage of emails that have been flying into my inbox. No shortage of opportunities on social. No shortage of people that are reaching out and saying,
Yes.
Vince, I'm doing this amazing thing. It's Black Friday, and I go, that's awesome, because that's what this is, right? Like if this gives you a reason, or even pick a date, March 7th of 2022 is enough to give you a reason, right? That you want to have an event surrounding. You can do that too, right?
Yes.
So it is about, getting out, figure out what is your strategy, what are the tactics that do that, who do you serve and how do you serve them. You make that assumption. You can definitely test. You can definitely have mentors. You should have mentors. You should have friends. You should have peers. You should be, reading the same books your friends, or have your friends read the same books you are, or how can you
Yes.
implement
Yes. Yes.
this, right?
Yes.
So this is how this kind of all starts. And then, as you know, like there's no shortage of programs and places that you can show up that, if they fit what you do, and you get involved, and again you implement and you put this into practice, and you get feedback before you do it, you get feedback during, and then you make changes and you go back, right?
Yeah.
Someone said to me a long time ago, and that, like, in general, what it was, and it might even be the specific words, like, don't underestimate the task at hand. Okay.
Mm.
So that's really critical here, is that if your plan is to have X on Tuesday, that's really different than if Tuesday is 6 months from now, if it's 3 years from now, right? There's a lot of people who have done the work over time to get there. And so
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
what you need inside of your business, whether it's network, whether it's, a list, whether it's a product that crushes the competition, or whether it's a service that crushes the competition.
Yeah.
Go out, validate that through that process. But you have to get it out there, and that's when you ask, "Hey Vince, could you come on and talk?" I mean, we connect pretty much weekly. But how do we, what would be important here for somebody who is starting or restarting?
Yeah.
It's to keep this process going, and not to continue to do the things that don't work. There's some process there's some value in testing those things in other markets, if that's where you're going, or other segments of your
Yeah.
marketplace,
Yep.
because you might have just that it's true, this might work. You actually might be right, right? But not for that segment of the market, not for that avatar. And
Yeah.
that's why Misha and I brought out all these things today, even though he let me talk like 99% of the time today. Like that's why because we've talked about this, like that's why we wanted to make sure we bring this out, is that starting and restarting, it comes back to, using those resources, testing, making sure, testing, and moving through the process. So maybe we can get into some other things, strategies, another day. But when it comes to this, is like you have to get out there,
Yeah.
and you have to get out there with plans and strategies that leave you the ability to get out there the next time you want to get out there as well.
Mm. Speak to that for a second. That leaves you speak to that a little bit more. I like that. I like that thought. And
Okay, well, why don't we close on that as I speak to this? Is that good? Are we good?
yeah, we're good. We
Okay,
could close what? Sorry.
close for today.
Oh yeah, perfect. No, I think we're good. I think what
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
so just in speaking to that, like make sure that when you get out there, you leave yourself enough to come back another day, right? And this has nothing to do with any kind of there's some words I'm avoiding for sure, but this has everything to do with that. Like, we're in the testing business, and if if you're, it's very different for let's just say someone who comes out of some form of university and they have a degree, and there is a model that other of the very same thing that they're about to get into go ahead and do. Like when your model is so high and proven, you have peer support, you have industry support, you have all of these things. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you have new products, new services, no matter whether this is the genesis is the fact that you were that person, you went to school, but you're bringing in something new, something that doesn't have that kind of industry and peer support, and is already in high demand, right? I just think about like in the medical services, that kind of thing, in the health field. Sometimes you have people like that, but outside of that, right? When you're looking to make a change, or you're solving a problem in a manner that, as far as you know, nobody else has done it quite exactly like this.
Yep.
And so the reason that so number one is that you want to make sure you got money for tomorrow, right? You want to make sure that you have those resources, because time and energy, right? They don't get replenished, but money can replenish.
Yes.
You got the money somehow, so you can probably go back and get some more, right? So money replenishes. Ideas are, all over the place. No shortage of ideas.
No shortage.
But your time and energy, and really then your mindset, right? Like how you felt about what just happened is really important, right? So leaving the expectations to the results, right? Like you're driven, yes, and like you have to do everything that you can within the resources and everything you have. And yes, you might be underserving the resources in there the first time, and maybe you recognize that that's what you need to go back and do. But the opportunity is to make sure that you can go back and do it. And that's the most critical thing. And it's not twice. It's not go back 3 or 4 times. It's like keep going back, right? And maybe at some point some of those resources that replenish, like money, you have to go and replenish them. But if you're getting uptake, if the results are still coming through, and you have decided that you have that tenacity within you, because that's kind of part of it, and you want to do that, then make sure that you have enough for, again, if you're starting and or restarting, because you've taken the feedback. And restarting, when I say restarting, it's like you've gotten feedback and you're listening to it. And you're like, okay, so I came down this pathway. It was interesting. Nobody else was on that path with me. My customers weren't. I was actually alone on that path. It's like, okay, so everybody's kind of over here. I thought I could draw everybody over, but I can't. So let's go down this pathway. And as the closer you get to mainstream, right? So, and where they can see you, and you have enough of a difference, and they start coming over, then you can start to lead back. However it is, whether it's positioning, or just getting some people to put this in their hand through demonstration, right? Where they can test and they can move things around.
Yeah, so, right. I love it. This is good. This is awesome. Amazing. For next time, we'll start to dig deep into the avatar, because it's very important, or the perfect customer, or who we're going to serve, and talk about the psychographics versus the demographics, because the perception for a lot of people is that the demographics are really what's important, but perhaps it's more critically important to focus on the psychographics.
Sure. And just to kind of give it, like, they all have importance. It comes back to like how you're reading the tea leaves, and how you're reading that feedback. And so, and they guide us on different things. Just remember, like, you must have a clear message. You must be able to deploy your resources. And there must be incentives in the marketplace to do this, meaning there's results and there's incentive for you, and there's an incentive for everybody. It's incentives that drive us, right? It's incentives that drive your market, right? There's an incentive for people to listen to this podcast. There's an incentive for people to to go out and do what they do, and so you need incentives for people to engage with you, consume your products and services. And yes, like all of these things, I love the fact that I'm happy to talk about demographics and psychographics, but at the beginning of the day, not at the end of the day. I'm one of those people that don't like at the end of the day, because it's too late. The end of the day is too late, people. I'm sorry. It's done. And you're like, where did all that go?
Yeah.
No. But when we start at the beginning of the day, and we know, hey, listen, I'm taking my wagon and my lemonade, and I'm going to the football game because as those people are kind of coming in and out of that thing, I know I'm going to sell a lot of lemonade, right?
Yep.
And so it's at the beginning of the day. It's on the decisions that you make. And in that little example, if I looked out and I didn't see the rain clouds, I might have made a mistake. Might have, right? Maybe I can find cover. Maybe there's other things that I can do when I get there. But our plans rarely, if ever, unfold the way that we anticipate them. So that's where that tenacity and that's what that opportunity. I love the demographics, I love the psychographics, but you have to stand out there and be known and deliver and stand behind what you do before any of this really starts to make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for that. I wanted to make sure that as we hold the avatar loop open, I believe you wanted to kind of dive into some avatar a little bit, and I think time wise we're running short here, but so for the next time perhaps we can dive into some avatar. Or
happy to do that. Just one last thing. So even if you're diving into demographics and psychographics and you're doing it in a vacuum, meaning you haven't left your house, you haven't left the office, you haven't left the warehouse, you haven't left the manufacturing plant, you haven't left the farm, how are you going to do that? Right? That's why I say, you've got to grab your lemonade stand, put it in the wagon, and you've got to go to the football game. And then and only then do you really understand what the demographics and the psychographics and everything mean, right? All right, so we're back again. We had a little tech glitch. See, not everything goes according to plan, right? It just doesn't go according to plan, right? So that's why you want to be in the field. That's why you want to be out there, because demographics and psychographics, if you've never been in the field, if you've never worked with these people, if you never stand and sold and more importantly delivered, watch how they consume your products and your services, it's really hard to pick the demographics and psychographics that suit you. There is going to be a morphing of you and your business, just the way it is, right? If we know, and this podcast, as we just saw on Tech Glitches, was an example of that not everything goes our way. But here's the thing. The longer that you stand in and you deliver and you say, this is the way and this is my way, not my way is the way, but this is the way, this is my way, and people go, oh, I recognize you. You look familiar. I see what you do, and trust, right? So remember that when we want to do all this fancy stuff like numbers and metrics and things like that, things that we actually need to do, right?
Yes.
But we can get absorbed into these little boxes that we all kind of type into, or conversations that we're going to have. We have to remember that you're going to get more out of going out into the marketplace, so that you can make better decisions when you're typing in the machine. Okay. And that's what this is all about, because your opportunity to be recognizable, to be familiar, and to be understood. Okay. For you to be understood. I'll say it again, for you to be understood. Our job is to understand and make our clients feel understood. Imagine what happens when you're understood to them. They're like, oh, I get it. Those guys, they take the snow from my driveway. They cut the grass. They rake up the leaves, right? And this is the way they do it. And they roll up in good, clean trucks. And they got a really cool crew. I really like the guy. Again, when they understand what you do, they recognize you and they know you're familiar. What happens? Customers for life. Mm-hmm. And so that's our goal always, right? Going and getting new customers all the time. So as much as we want to get out there, all that work about demographics and psychographics is only applicable in the real world, even though it looks kind of cool when we put it together here.
I like that.
Cool.
So, and I'll give this last thought. One of the things that I heard you say, and I love going back and listening to this stuff, because I I'm like, oh, I get new awareness, new lenses, new angles of what we're talking about. But one of the things I think I heard you say was, we've got to get out there and take action and start to learn what are the psychographics, what are the demographics, like who is this person? And it's going to, by action, are we going to start to be able to refine that by, yes, is that a bit of what I heard you say right there?
Values, beliefs, demand, desire. Yeah. So the demographics, the age, where do they live? Like there's all things. Again,
Yeah.
it all comes back to applying your resources.
Okay.
Okay. There's so much opportunity. And then there's also there's just understanding the market itself, because sometimes, and when you get into demographics and psychographics, you also have to talk about the demographics and psychographics of your competition, direct and indirect, right? So that you're not out there, fighting in a space that you're not going to be able to own or defend. Or so anyway, it comes back to, when you are in the marketplace, you become the marketplace, and you're a lot harder to move. We all have competition. You're a lot harder to move when you're in the marketplace rather than just coming in and out of the marketplace.
It's good. Thank you for that.
Couple of secrets in there today, but really, yeah, they're not secrets anymore, right? But the thing is that, like, I love it. Like, so there's no shortage of places that you can go to learn, how to identify the demographics. How do I set up a plan? There's lots of places. We do it every day. But that whole thing about tenacity and mindset and how you approach things, right? Learn, act, do, repeat. Learn, act, do, repeat, right? You have to get into that cycle of, okay, here's what I learned today. Is it actionable? Yes. Okay, then act upon it, right? And do it, right? And then take your feedback and repeat, right? And keep going, and just understand what are the things that you need to be doing, not from your perspective, from your customer's perspective. Like, if you don't show up with the little red wagon full of lemonade at the football game with a thirsty market, they're going to find something else. They're not just going to stay thirsty.
They are not going to stay thirsty. They are going to go find some lemonade somewhere, aren't they? They're going to find something to drink.
For all that we want to do with demographics and psychographics, which are all part of it, we're looking for thirsty markets, and we want to show up. So there's a whole story. There's lots of stories about this, about thirsty market, hungry markets, all of this. But I think it sometimes gets lost. Show up. Don't go back to the book. Don't go back to the spreadsheet. Don't go back. Like, show up. It's lemonade that they want. If you got to grab somebody's little red wagon, if you got to go buy the little red wagon, if you got to get out to the football game, you got to get out to the soccer game, you got to get out to where it is within that process that you're going to do it.
Vince, that is a fantastic thought to end on. Get out there.
Get out there.
All right, fantastic. Well, I think we'll end there, and we'll talk more Avatar next time, assuming we have an opportunity again.
Sure. You got it, man.
Yeah, good.
This was fun. So again, if you're listening to this podcast and wherever Misha puts it and you want to give him feedback, make sure you give him feedback. Get those questions in coming into Misha, so that, as he brings guests on, he's on his journey, as he's out there figuring out, as he's putting himself out, as he's taking his little red podcast wagon with his lemonade stand to the football game, which he does right now. As he's doing that, give him some feedback.
Please give me some feedback. Absolutely. Yes, the email will be in the show notes. Is in the show notes.
Beautiful.
Okay, I'm going to hit stop. We'll say goodbye offline.